No, I mean, I think you guys are right. The one thing I'll probably add or put out there is they can put out a mediocre game and still succeed in this, and then just keep cycling through mediocre games that they make popular. Again, it's not about having a successful franchise, a successful IP to them. It's about sales, like and turning over hoodies or whatever else they're trying to sell us on. So I agree that it's going to be a shitty game. I agree that they haven't proven that they can execute beyond hoodies and content. I agree that orgs clearly are struggling if they have to figure out these new non-traditional revenue streams and big swings like this, and that this is a ripoff of what Doc's doing. I just think that they could probably find success with a web-based HTML game that they, if it makes them more money than it costs them, then it's a win. If it entertains their audience for a week or a month, then they can do that and churn and keep pumping these out and go on to the next game relatively cheaply. And again, that's not a model I want to see. I just think that they could find success making crappy games.
Do you think their audience is not loyal? Because I totally agree. Like the first game, yeah, definitely, no matter what, people are going to play. Same thing with the doc. Second game, okay, if the first one sucked, maybe, the people will play. But like, I don't think their fans are that loyal if they're just churning out like garbage, like mobile games or something like just crappy. Like, I don't know. Are people going to be like, to me, I think they're more likely to lose their audience than their audience to start liking these crappy games.
I agree. They're definitely putting their reputation at stake with this. Absolutely.
If the game sucks, like let's take the extreme scenario. If the game sucks, I guarantee you they sell far less hoodies as a consequence.
I mean, if the game sucks, then they probably don't make more games, right? That's also what.
But keep in mind how expensive this is too. Right? Like if they
like you're spending a lot of money.
Like if they listen to our podcast episode from last week, I mean, what was the comment on game developers? Like they're just commanding massive amounts of money right now because it's such a hot space, right? This is not going to be cheap. 100 Thieves is not going to get game developers for 50 grand a head just because they're 100 Thieves. These game developers are literally going anywhere, making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, this is such a fool's errand, and also confirms that there's zero oversight at most of these teams. To Chris's point, like there's no sort of level-headed kind of voice in the room saying, "Let's take a step back, guys. This 20 million we're about to blow. Where is this maybe better spent?" Alonzo says they can promote the game, but the development isn't there. Seems like involving the community in the development is part of their promotion as well. Alonzo, no doubt, right? Like it's like you create hype, you build it up, you create this idea that you can have input into this game, and it's all well and good. But like, I just don't know if you can truly, authentically take 100,000 opinions and bake it into a game and the game not suck. Chris says to Jimmy, could 100 Thieves have saved Splitgate?
Chris, Paul, and I have seen what Splitgate is going to look like, and I don't think it needs saving. So I would say put on your boots and get ready. It looks like a lot of fun.
It wasn't to me, but I will second that I don't think Splitgate, given that they raised 100 million, has counted themselves out just yet. And I don't think they need 100 Thieves. They have a pretty good idea of where they're going, and I'll be curious to see how gamers react to it, but we did get a sneak peek, and it is pretty cool. So, Wenji says, "Is this some way to raise additional funding? Also, in future, they have something additional to point to at IPO or future funding round, and look at all these verticals we have. Although fresh investment is going to be hard this year, I get the impression. I think fresh investment this year probably won't." Like in game developers won't slow down this year despite the general market slowdown, most of the VCs are still flush with cash. So does anyone think that this is a ploy to raise more money?
I think that's an interesting point, actually. And you know what I'm thinking? I was thinking of the FaZe Clan SPAC deck. I mean, they were pointing to M&A, other potential opportunities.
What was the thing on there, Jeff? There was one thing on there. Now I forget.
Like future potential opportunity. M&A was like 50% of future growth, which is just ridiculous. But So that would have made sense in the context of, hey, just throw that in there. And, I think if it was 6 months ago, but now the market's kind of changed a bit with these SPACs. But like, yeah, you could have easily been like, well, look, we're going to do $1 billion in revenue in game sales in 3 years. And investors would be like, oh, okay, like sounds great. Now I don't think you're going to, that exists anymore. But I think it's a really good point by Wenji that, it could be part of a pitch that, this is the future for them.
Does anyone think that the game may be a blockchain game at some point or evolve into that if that's not the thinking already? Or we're going to see 100 Thieves token of some sort? Like, does anyone think they really go down hardcore that path, Lindsay?
There might be I could see there being some kind of tie-in. This is one of I think all of us actually really liked the NFT that they did, if I remember properly, which is kind of, that was, I guess, a curveball given our usual kind of thoughts surrounding 100 Thieves. But I thought it was actually a super cool NFT, and it was super cool that they gave it away for free. And I don't know how successful it was for fan engagement, but it was certainly forward thinking and a pretty good activation as far as teams and these kind of more casual orgs are concerned. So I'm not sure, given how that went, they may consider shifting to a blockchain style game. But I think that it's just wild to announce a game. Well, it's not wild, but it's crazy to me to announce a game project and like we have absolutely no details on what type when happening.
But that's sort of par for the course, right? Like,
sure, it could be a blockchain game, it could be a mobile game, it could be a PC game, it could be an Oculus game, like it could be a lot of things. It could be a board game, like
But it's a great question though. Do you think they know and just don't say, or do you think it's truly that they just haven't thought about it yet? Like we're going to make a game and then we'll figure it out.
I would imagine that there's some type of direction that they're all excited about, and that's why they made the announcement. But I still would also imagine that it's early. They're trying to, gather hype, all this stuff. The direction may change depending on who jumps on board, what investment it draws, whatever. I would imagine that they have an idea of what they want, and it'll adapt depending on.
To that vein, it's an interesting question. Like, why? Maybe this gets to what Wenji's saying. Maybe this answers your question a little bit, Paul. Why announce this now? Either it's for financing or it's for recruiting, right? Because this game's presumably they haven't been working on this for a while. I think we would have heard about that. They were hiring. It just would have gotten out there. So this game's not going to come for 2, maybe 3 years if it's a PC console game. Like, why make this big pomp and circumstance announcement now? Like, haven't we learned that's not smart? Like, I feel like we've talked about this.
So they last raised around in December. So it's coming up on 6 months, which means they're probably running out of money. So my guess is it's like,
well, you put out, Paul, a great idea, which was, is this a blockchain game? And I think that's a wonderful way to raise a lot of investor money because it's very popular right now, and a wonderful way to fail miserably and have a lot of people be like, well, it was a risky thing. We knew that getting into it. So I actually like the idea, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a blockchain game, 1, to attract dollars, 2, to have justification if they do fail. I thought that was on point.
Yeah. I wonder if Andreessen, we talked on the Meta Business podcast coming out next week, Andreessen and their new game fund. So that'll be interesting to see if they're in the next 100 Thieves round as a consequence. Antonio says, I like how casual they're willing to maybe throw away 100 million. I don't know if it's going to be 100 million, but it's probably at least 20. You got to think that they're going to blow at least 20, 30 million on this. Maybe 100 if they're trying to make like AAA level game. But I suspect this is not, the target's not AAA quality game. Wenji says, I don't know what the multiple valuations are on game companies versus esports company. I mean, there's no public esports teams other than Astralis and maybe FaZe. So hard to say on that one. I anecdotally, I think there's a lot more hype around game developers right now than esports companies.
I guess that's a good point. I think in general, if we're talking about an established esports team and like org versus like an EA Activision, it's definitely the multiple is much higher on the esports org front. But I guess if you're talking about startup, maybe blockchain gaming studios, they're getting probably higher multiples than what we're seeing.
Yeah. When she says it could be 100 Thieves Wordle / Sudoku. I mean, that could be their big plan for Project X. Even the name, it's just lame. I mean, it's so lame. I'm constantly amazed at these teams who consider themselves purveyors of cool, how lame some of their decision making is and how lame some of their stuff is. Just my opinion, I guess.